One Rioter versus 20 League players with Frogson. I said hi to Frogson, met him just a little bit when I was in Riot HQ. I always like how transparent he is and open with everything that they're doing basically on Twitter.
Q doesn't exist, you belong at your rank.
The devil, he's in front of me.
LosersQ doesn't exist.
There's other champions that are functionally Labubus.
Sorry, what is a champion being a Labubu mean?
For the conspiracy theorists out there, you can just shake my hand, swear on your mom that it's not real, and I'll just believe you forever.
I shouldn't have
I wonder if I'll know any
undershirt.
people
That
here.
was a bad move. I'm Riot Frogson, lead gameplay
Should we
designer
do the
for League of
CC?
Legends, and I'm
CC's
surrounded
good.
by 20 Redditors who have
20?
interesting takes.
20 Redditors? It's at League players, man. Those are not synonymous.
On League of Legends. My first take is, Mel is a balanced champion.
I mean, you can talk about the health of the character. She is balanced. He's right.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Oh, that's all right. I thought you said one. I thought you said one.
Alright. Oh. Okay. Saying Mel is balanced is inherently just a nothing burger statement.
Sure.
True.
We, as the player base, don't
True.
care whether Mel is like statistically balanced. Like, wow, she's 46% win rate. Like, I'm still contracting.
Okay, we're actually gonna have an argument and not just semantics about what it means to be balanced. Cool.
illnesses playing against this. Like, regardless of which role she's in, if she's on mid or bot or support. And I think this comes down to a few things. Like, obviously the W is important, right? And I think it's cool, but also like if I'm playing against a mage who's like not subhuman and they have like W and Zhonya's, like I, as a melee champ or an assassin, have very little opportunity to bait this out, especially in a fight. Like in lane, I think it's fine. And I think the changes you did were like, okay, abilities that aren't targeted at her, like don't get
So it took us like 25 seconds to get into the subhuman territory. What are these guys showing? What even is that?
reflected. I think that's good. But like it's
And raise
not
their
just the
emote
W,
sign,
it's
like
the
a
fact
diff-
that the Q
Oh, it's like
is
thumbs down.
undodgeable.
Oh, the subhuman triggered him. It's like, okay, get the fuck out of here. Get the subhuman out of here.
For like a decent amount of time.
One of the things that we feel pretty strongly about is that champions in League of Legends need to have a wide range of experiences when they're either played as or played against. And Mel is one that has very wide ranges of experiences. Same with Yasuo, right? So she can have situations where there's just like sometimes nothing you can do.
Yeah, I refuse to believe that, like, I know Mel is annoying, and she's annoying. People aren't used for mages to be that annoying, but there's tons of other champions which are just absolutely disgusting to play against. Just because they function at different roles, people don't really mention them as much. Like, Bard is one of them, for example. Like, playing versus Samira, there's so many moments where there's just nothing you can do. She clips off all of the counterplay. That can happen with Yasuo if he's ahead in the lane, and your own minions play against you. You fight back, you get the Windwall. You know, you can get the Cassante during the stage when it was strong. Like, some of the champions had their periods where they were, like, crazy broken. I don't see why Mel is, like, this, like, big beacon that just lightning rod that summons all the hatred, you know?
In a situation where Mel is ahead and, you know, it's hard to get on her and it's hard to bait out her W. But we think that that's okay. And there are situations where that has to be okay for either games to end or for champions to feel like they're strong, right? Like if somebody was 12-0 on Rengar, for example, would we expect there to be counterplay to Rengar in that situation? Like,
I mean, if I predict him perfectly, guys, like, there should be counterplay.
yes, right. Like, not really, right? And so the same is true for Mel, right? In the cases where you're saying, hey, like hit them with 2 Qs and press
Also,
hold.
like, Riot, one of the Riot devs insta confirming that there is no counterplay to Rengar when he gets fed, whereas their stated goal of doing the rework was to actually add counterplay. But
That only really happens either if she got in range of someone
I get
who's
it's
really
not like
squishy, in
one-to-one,
which case
but
they probably
still.
mispositioned, or Mel was a god, or something like that. And does Mel deserve to win in those instances? Like, probably, right? And so one of the foundational premises of League of Legends is that when you get super ahead, you're allowed to feel.
Yeah, laning versus Mel is the most annoying part, generally. And I think it's just because her abilities are a little bit too reliable in dealing with enemies. And now they fixed her wave clear. She was very weak before because her wave clear sucked, even though her abilities were stronger. Now her abilities are weaker, but her wave clear is better, makes them way more playable because she has more % time to actually focus on the characters and like combat instead of just PvE. I could see like very cool ways how you can make her Qs like be a longer wind up but bigger payoff, you know, like shooting him to the sky, like, and then like you know, then they rain down. Like a little bit, you can make it like very, very cool concept. Or her E, make her E go like behind her, like, and then like shoot faster or something. So it has a little bit more foresight to defend against it, you know? Because it's too reliable as a peel tool in melee range, for example. That's what makes it frustrating for assassins. At long range, it shouldn't really hit you, but it is a good chain CC tool, and it should be a good chain CC tool.
Feel awesome. And so the thing I would contest is basically, in a state where she's even, she gets to do that, which I don't think is the case.
Okay, that's it.
They got him out. What the fuck? What's bro doing? Huh? Was he gonna hit her?
I already introduced myself. Okay, I disagree. I think Mel is a fundamentally unbalanced champion, and I think it's because of her W, right? Because with champions who have similar...
Okay, I can see where it's gonna go. It's gonna be like, well, what is the definition of an unbalanced champion? You know, it's like, are we gonna go by win rate? Or gonna like... It's gonna tackle
like,
her?
projectile reflecting like Yasuo and Samira. A lot of that is balanced by the fact that they're more melee or champions who usually have a more feast or famine playstyle, where it's, and that's like their only defensive tool in order to gap close and stay healthy. And
you know, Mel in a way, it kind of funnels her performance towards 50% in a way, and that's what a lot of mages do. VelKoz does that as well, because it makes it very difficult for a terrible VelKoz to be useless, because you can almost always just chain CC and do a decent damage combos, right? But if enemies have any sort of brain, it's almost impossible to land your stuff, and that's where you kind of differentiate. Same thing for Mel, but like, when you're really fed, the champion never reaches the point where it plays itself. Like, you can be 10-0 on VelKoz, the champion never plays itself, much like Rengar would. Same for Mel. If you're 10-0, Mel doesn't play herself. You still have only 2 abilities, and if you miss those 2 abilities, you're cooked. Like, in a team fight, you're done. Whereas Yasuo and Samira get a pentakill very, very rapidly. Risk versus reward concept, you know, very, very basic. And it's good that champions have different curves. Like, VelKoz and Mel, like, funnel for 50%, while, like, Yasuo and Samira have, like, wider tails, I guess. They have, like, worse lows, but better highs.
lane. However, I think with Mel, her role as a mage kind of changes how powerful that W is on her. That part is like fundamentally unbalanced for other champions to play against.
There's a few things that you're bringing up that are really reasonable. Some of the things that I think that you're saying are certain champions shouldn't be so polarizing in terms of having, you know, really strong counter matchups to certain things, right? Like you're saying, hey, if I'm playing Seraphine into Mel, that's a really frustrating experience sometimes because the burden for me to play against Mel.
Like, if you're gonna go down this route, you have like a way bigger problem. You have like more problematic characters such as Sylas, because Sylas is designed around his ultimate, and yet he's been pro staple since forever. Since forever, high elo and pro staple, ridiculously strong and high agency character, and he's designed to be played around ult. So like, his curve is way worse because Sylas has been balanced around playing without ultimate for some reason. That if you have a dogshit ult, then the champion is good and playable, but if your enemies have like Alistar or Swain, it's unplayable for enemies. Mel works in the same exact way, kinda, but she's been balanced around nicely around her W, where if you pick her into Seraphine and Ashe, she's going to be pretty decent, but if you pick her versus something that where you can't really deflect anything, you just get suffocated. You lose. You can talk about the polarizing abilities like that, and whether champions should be like hard counters, like Sylas counters Malphite, for example. That was like the hardest counter in league history for like 70% win rate or something, because you just become Malphite but better. Well, yeah, I can make that argument, but again, like, why is Mel focus? You have worse, like more egregious characters there.
It seems like she has a basic ability that can kind of nullify my whole kit, and the R is a large part of my power budget. The question I kind of have is around what makes League of Legends fun to play in the long term. And typically when humans kind of interact with things that are difficult or hard to play against, their initial reaction is not, oh, this was really hard to play against, I give up. It's, oh, this was really hard to play against, and I need to find a way to get around it, or I need to find a way to overcome it. Like if my
engage the Souls
beats
drive
me in a game, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, sorry, like you won. You know, I give up, right? I'm going to try and find a way. Oh, I really want to beat that person. And that's kind of one of the secret sources of League of Legends. And so to the question of whether there should be things that make it very difficult to play against a certain champion, you know, something that you would consider, you know, Sylas picking into Malphite, for example, you know, a Malphite player might consider that.
Yeah. See, like he's thinking along those lines, exactly.
And I agree, right? But we should have those things in the game because it's valuable for players to play against things that are quite difficult to play against. and form a plan to be able to
She
find how they
copied
can
you.
play against it next time, right? Like assassins
Stole
fall into
my
this
argument.
camp, really hard counters fall into this camp.
But it's really obvious
Now we
because again, like he came kind of prepared and he knows like what they're doing with the champion curves and like what the champion is. And it is a polarizing ability, the W, but there's more polarizing abilities, right?
Definitely overdo it by just having too many of those. But that's the reason why we have them in the game. And we always try and push the limits of how acceptable is the, you know, top end of that, and how much can that make the experience, you know, difficult to play against, and how upsetting is that for players. So we try and balance.
Yeah, and the argument is to keep the Mel lower pick rate and Mel's gonna be fine, you know, like make her just somewhat niche character to lean into her ability. But if you're a ridiculously good Mel, you can make it work anyway, somewhat. Same thing should be for Silas, but somehow they just omitted that for Silas.
It's that carefully, but that's why we do it.
All right, I'll see you, Matt.
Okay, sorry.
What the?
Oh my goodness.
Is this really how it
gracious.
goes? They just race to the chair
Oh, very chivalrous.
and they give up the
What a
chair.
gentleman.
Okay, so I don't believe that Mel is balanced, but I'm kind of playing devil's advocate in where I think you guys shouldn't have nerfed her. I think you guys kind of stripped her of her.
They didn't nerf her,
uniqueness
they
by taking
shifted the
away her
power.
invulnerability. I think that there are other ways, like he was saying, with like changing the passive, because I don't think that she is unbalanced. I think she's a frustrating champion to play against. She had in February, I think her win rate went down to like 42%. Right now it's at 46.
Yeah,
and
I
Masters-
believe her name is Chim Chim or something like that. She was one of the nominees for the community streamer of the year, I believe, when we went to Munich.
plus, and I think it's like 48 Emerald plus. So she's underwhelming right now. But I think that there are other problems in her kit that pose the problem. I think she's just a frustrating champion. League of Legends in the past year of 2025 did a really great job at listening to the community, and the community obviously was
True.
frustrated playing against her.
Objectively true.
And I think there are several other champions that are frustrating to play against that have gone unresolved. Tom Kench, Fizz invulnerability, like he can go.
I like how you can know. Like, I mean, no offense. It's just majority of the audience is in that elo, obviously. Like, but you can know like people are low elo when they have problems with something like Tom Kench or Fizz, because those champs are basically never cited at the top of the ladder. It's just a wildly different perspective of League of Legends that we have. And honestly, like streamers like me, as much as I try to like put myself in the shoes of regular people, I can never really be an advocate for the average player. And basically nobody in the streaming sphere can, because almost everybody plays like Master and above, which everyone's like 0.1% to 1% top. We have a very weird thing in League where the voice disparity, the impact of the voices is just completely asymmetrical, where all the opinions basically that we just emulsify ourselves in is basically nothing but higher elo people. So there's nobody left to advocate for lower elo players, which is just food for thought.
Vulnerable, what is it, like every 8 seconds at max rank?
Yep.
Mel's invulnerability is what, 25 max rank, something like that. So I don't think it's she.
My heart stopped. I thought my PC died. It can happen all the time. I'm on edge all the time. What the fuck was that? Was that like a part in a video where they
max
cut
rank,
weirdly?
something like that.
Was that
So
a part
I
in the
don't
video?
think it's she was overpowered. I think
No?
she's just frustrated.
What happened?
Yeah. So
I thought my
I agree
PC
with that
died.
take. I think that
Holy.
so one of the things that I'm going to touch on here is Fizz is a melee champion, right?
Okay.
And melee champions in general need a lot of tools to be able to overcome ranged. Because
Right.
one of the jokes that we have internally is that the most overpowered thing in League of Legends is the ranged basic attack.
Okay.
Because it's just so powerful, especially on an 80 carry. And so the melee champions, which, you know, I agree that they can be frustrating and, you know, they need these tools to be able to survive. Now that's, you know, something we could debate, of course, but in the flip case, we have champions like Amundo or something that can kind of just run at you and hit you repeatedly because they don't have those tools to be, you know, like very tricky. And one of the things that's really important for frustrating champions or champions that the community perceives as frustrating is that We have them because players need to be able to form plans around things that are interesting, right? And now we don't want to have too many frustrating champions because sometimes players need to be able to form a plan around something. And if you have to form a plan around Rengar and Mel and, you know, insert
Yeah,
a
true.
number of
Like you
champions
want to
that
have some
too many
Garens,
diseases
some
frustrating and changes your
Dariuses, you
game plan
know.
significantly, that can become unfun. And so we want to have the right number of frustrating champions or the right number of frustrating experiences, ones that are difficult to play against, so that we have that level of ups and downs. You know, like we don't want League of Legends to be a game where every
And
game
she's the new
you
voice
leave,
of
you're like,
noobs.
wow, that was a very pleasant experience, right? Like
Where's my
losing in League of
CC?
Legends, you know, feels bad, right? And kind of like I said before, if you lose in League of Legends and you feel bad, the reaction is not, I want to give up necessarily. It can be that if it happens too often, but really the reaction is, wow, I want to see how I can beat that next time. And that's one of the things that we think is the secret to League of Legends having such a long
Bro, they just
lifespan.
copied, like, Riot Games just copied my latest Riot Games collab short that they posted. That's basically what I talked
Is that
about.
there is the right balance of things being frustrating and things being easier to play against. And so we try and, you know, finely tune that balance. And so, yeah, I think broadly speaking, like your points make sense and are accurate. And it is kind of an intentional choice. Yeah.
Do you think he's balanced?
I think Mel's pretty balanced, yeah.
Mel
I think she
is
has
like-
a wide spectrum of scenarios where
was
she
the original
can feel
hypothesis.
unbalanced or can feel not very useful, right? But overall, you know, Mel's a pretty balanced champion, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm good.
My next topic is each role has a similar influence on the game.
What the hell? Bro's got some serious opinions. He's ready. He's ready.
Hi, nice
I don't think fundamentally can never really be super similar. Like just because how the game is designed. Also depends on the champions, roles and class of the champion within the role, and then the champion within the class. It just depends on all of those. It depends also on the elo and how good you are. And there's just so many different. Like this is just oversimplifying it insanely and leaving a little bit of like vague spot for like similar. How much weight does the similar carry? You know. Interesting.
So I believe that I know that the purpose of the game is that every person has their own role to play within. So like the top laner will be trying to be the powerhouse and whatnot, but there are definitely roles that have more impact on the game. And I'd say by far it would be the jungler. Because the jungler has access to all other roles in a sense and can act as another laner or as a power force to either equalize a lane from someone being behind or to push someone who's already ahead. It's like we often hear the terms like playing for like top or playing for bot. But in addition to that, junglers also have the ability to make calls on the map and influence how their laners play.
More so than everybody else.
Specifically get objectives. So like often when I play jungle, I will say that I want to wait for mid lane to push in, or I want the bot lane to aggressively push in now so that I can get the dragon. And in doing so, then that would affect their decisions on how to play.
True.
So how do you think about as a jungler, if the top laner goes 0-3 or the bot laner is, you know, goes
you can
0-6.
force the strong side, like you can force strong side on the opposite side. You can do different moves. You can maximize your farm because you don't have to look at one extra lane. It's valuable knowledge initially knowing your teammate goes 0-2, you know, and it was like, oh, this guy's crap. I can just pivot and play around the other stuff, you know.
And you feel like, you know, you can't do anything because they died 3 times in lane. How do you kind of determine that one of those things is more or less powerful than the other one?
Well, typically, from my perspective, I think about what would be the best option. There'd be 3 options. There would be to try and bring top back into the game, and by extension, leaving bot, or try to bring bot back into the game, or focusing on myself and trying to become the main driving force behind victory. And I think that would
depends
really
on the champ
like,
profile,
the current state of how things are looking, or as well as like perhaps the champions that they're playing, or what we're playing into, or how the game has been progressing so far.
Yeah. But when you're saying you think jungle is too impactful, right? In a situation where junglers can gank lanes, and that's true, and they can impact lanes a lot. Lanes can also just die repeatedly by themselves, right? Or you could get counter jungled because you have a bad matchup, right? Like what leads you to the conclusion that that action that you're taking as a jungler is more powerful or more impactful than something that would happen in another lane?
I think that intrinsically, because of a jungler's position to affect every lane by will of their own choosing instead of particularly being restricted to like my top lane, I have to push top. I think that because the jungler is given the ability to affect these lanes as well as make calls on the map to secure specific objectives, that they would have more impact on the game overall.
Yeah. So would you say that, for
That's objectively
example,
true.
a roaming support would have similar levels of influence
Can be
to
similar, yeah.
a jungler,
Yep,
even though they
yep.
can't like fight people, for example?
I would say definitely support also has a very high impact, but I think
This guy's high
arguably a little
elo.
less
This guy knows his shit.
than jungler because they aren't specifically geared to secure objectives and to gank other lanes, but they do also have a very effective way of influencing the map with vision and other aspects.
Yeah, he's
What
right.
I'm trying to get at is, I agree that roles have different strengths and weaknesses. What leads you to the conclusion that one of them is more or less powerful?
Because the one that drives the train, I can't believe that like, they're going down this route. The support, if the support initiates, support controls the tempo of the lane. Support initiates, support chooses when to roam. Support chooses when to back up and when to dive, generally, because none of it can be done without the support. AD carry can ping, but ultimately it's your control. Same for the jungler. Like if jungler creates extra tempo by having a faster clear and he goes for like a Gromp invade, for example, enemy bot lane doesn't have really much agency there, or like your bot lane and enemy bot lane. They don't really have that much agency. He just decided based on the states of the lanes that that's a good invade, and it's a good invade. He made the choice. Now everybody else is following suit, and they're like going into that play. He's imposing decision making on enemies, and they can't really do much about it. He's the first mover. He sets up the first piece. This is a very interesting theoretical, but let's say you had like a perfect computer AI and like 4 noobs. Where would you want to put that perfect AI player? Like, you want to put it in the jungle. That's where you want it. If you have the perfection, 100% efficiency player, you want to put it in the jungle because it's gonna lead you to the most wins. I don't know, what are they voting? Are they voting out? Voting it? They're like, are they like conflicted on the support because he said support as agency? Like, and they play support? They
I
mad?
would say
What's
just
happening?
intrinsically their purpose.
This guy's
in the
right.
game. And the purpose of jungler being to swing objectives or to influence how a lane state.
Yeah, like
progresses.
jungle chooses like whether you're gonna contest the objective, whether you're gonna give it up. He generally chooses like if all of you decide collectively we're gonna give the objective, but jungler goes to the objective to contest, you still have to go in. He made the call. He's contesting. You have to go in, even though it's a bad call.
Idea.
Yeah, great question.
What the fuck? You tried to like get in front of him.
Whoa.
Hello. Hi, I'm Core JJ. I'm a professional support player.
Big fan.
I think
Holy
my take
Core
is like
JJ.
in terms of lane itself, maybe bot lane might be the most impactful lane. Only
I mean,
because you are playing.
Naturally, 40% of
bot
the
lane.
team.
I
Yep.
think the mid lane is most impactful because like you are literally playing in the mid lane by yourself.
Yeah.
I think Riot probably also realized that. That's why they nerfed the mid lane gold gap, and then like minion speeds, etc. So many things. But even though they changed a lot, I think the location mid laners are in are too
True, dude.
impactful. Like you can influence into both side lane, and you can influence on both like side of jungler. Both laners are too impactful. So I think not a complicated reason, simply because mid lanes are played in the mid lane, like our most important lane, like by alone.
Yeah.
In a late game, like in the same reason, like if ADCs are going mid, the mid lanes are still most important. So that's why like most NA RAM is going on.
Sure.
Everyone comes to mid.
Do you think that there are ways for us to balance mid lane versus bot lane versus top lane?
No,
Because
you
mid lane
can't.
has less
based on
gold
design.
than bot lane, and mid lane has less XP than top lane. Do you think that there's a world where those could be balanced?
No, I don't think it should be balanced.
Oh, okay. You don't think it should
So-
be balanced?
What I'm disagreeing with is that every role is balanced.
Mid main detected. Nah, like for sure, mid lane is a high impact role because you're just tangential to everything. You can touch on everything. Yeah, mid lane is kind of like a dual partner to the jungler, kind of like support is a partner to the AD carry. If you're in lockstep, you know what you're doing. You can definitely exert some nice impact, but it also depends on the matchup. It depends on the champions and everything else. Generally, it's jungle, highest impact support, then mid lane, then you get the top lane and AD carry. Again, all of those are prone to change depending on the champion profile and the classes at play and who's playing what. Like, this is too complex of a topic to be discussing like this with like people in like a very mild format of just chit-chatting, because let's say you have an autofill top laner guy playing tank and you have Potent on Fiora. Right? Like, I don't care, like, what everyone else is playing. It doesn't matter. He's going to be the highest impact laner in that game. The entire game is going to be about top lane because he's going to create pressure. He's going to continuously threaten game end on that side. And then you have to respond. You have to come up with a plan around it. So top could be the least impactful, but not in that case. If you're smurfing and you're higher elo than the general, like the average player there, top lane skyrockets in value because top lane can easily break the game if he knows the matchups. Whereas that same lead cannot be pursued in mid lane, for example, because mid lane has to play more like indirect leads, like a little bit of tempo, a little bit of a better recall, a little bit of a better purchase, a little bit of a better decision where you're hovering correct side, and then you can turn that into an invade. And even that one doesn't work if you're like your partner of a jungler fails. Again, like it's such a complex topic to discuss, and this is like they're not making that much progress, I think.
I see.
I don't think every role can be balanced because of where it is right now.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a portal in the maps, like you can teleport from side to side. So mid lane has to be most important lane. But because it is center of the map, like you're just naturally too important.
What about a world where mid laners just had a lot less gold than bot lane? Or a world where mid laners just had a lot less XP than top lane? Do you think that that could be balanced even though they're in the center of the map?
I think that's what happening with a cast. Casting.
So do you think it's balanced then?
Even though it is not balanced, like especially like in terms of like pro level game, like mid lane has like early game impacts a lot of situation because of like your quest is literally give you extra money in early game, and then fast tempo game. So it will still make your top laner and bot laner strong. Like it's not you have a mid lane, you don't have a top laner and bot laner. You have a top laner and bot laner with a higher XP and higher gold, that you make them stronger easily. So I would say mid lane is still most impactful.
So your argument is that mid lane makes bot lane and top lane strong, or can make bot lane and top lane strong, and therefore it's the most impactful.
Proxon's losing on this one.
Yeah, there's certainly some truth to that.
He got mugged in both cases
it's one of
here.
the reasons why we wanted to make top lane have more levels and have bot lane have more economy, so that every role feels like it's
the jungle
got something
support guy was
different
correct, and this guy is correct, and they all touched on like the three most impactful roles, generally speaking. Again, whenever we talk about this, you know it's general. It's like one circumstance doesn't disprove the rule. As I said, like that top lane Fiora popping off and carrying, or like some AD carry play for the AD carry comp, right? They can be most impactful in specific games, but in general, on average, it's going to be this.
With the mid laner to play in the game, but then at the point where they've done that, then their job is done. And I think if there's confusion about which roles are the most powerful, I think if we were to ask, all the people in the room, they would probably say a different role is the most powerful. I think that kind of means that we've succeeded. You know what I mean?
Nobody said top or ADC.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks.
All right. I will say that I definitely agree with what Zandy was saying about junglers, but I think more broadly, just roles that have a lot more influence on macro will have a lot more influence on the game itself.
I mean, yeah.
And so whether or not you have impact, I guess, like to your team and the outcome of the game, I would say is much more on roles with macro, like that being jungler or roaming supports, or also mid.
Yeah, but like you can maximize your own impact by also like putting yourself as in the position of the first mover as the guy initiating, right? You can get impact by drafting like Ashe. And if you're good at Ashe and you spam pings and you initiate with arrows, you can generally take more impact than you would normally as an AD carry.
And I think that you can
It's
be
very
greatly
flexible.
impacted, obviously, by having a good person, a good player in one of those roles. But also, if you have someone that is worse, it's going to be worse for your team if they're on a role that requires high macro like that. Like, sure, you could have a less mechanically skilled jungler, but if they know the macro to play jungler, then they will perform better than someone that might be more mechanically skilled or more mechanically gifted, but just has less macro.
I agree with this
let's
assertion.
take this
yeah.
argument to the extreme. Let's say that we tripled AD carries damage, but we halved their move speed. Would you say that that role has a lot of macro capability?
I would say like potentially in their lane, but not across like the entire map.
Do you think that that version of AD carry is impactful?
Certainly. I'm not saying AD carry is not impactful right now as it
I mean, meta would just shift into like AD carries would be useless. I feel like they would be bullying lane, but the meta would shift in like complete disengagement and split pushing, and meta would just be like avoid the enemy AD carry. That would be the meta. You'd put AD carries in mid lane eventually, and that'd be like just close proximity to all the other sides. You would boost them up, boost their speed, but then it would be all about split pushing and sides and control.
is. I'm also saying that I just think that the impact that you have as a role like support,
Like that would like, okay, let me respond to this, because it would lower the impact of the AD carries in general. If you increase their damage but lose their move speed, it would lower the impact of AD carries. Why? Because they would almost never be the first mover. They would never be the prime mover, which means the impact lies to the people counterplaying them and playing around them. It doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter if I do extra damage if enemy Rengar knows how to play and he's doing good stuff and he goes around, gets fed, and then he comes in and one-shots your AD carry. That's what it would be. It would lower the impact.
or as a role like jungle, like great like influences what happens for your team more than the other roles. Like if you are a better player, you will do better if you're in one of those roles. Like
I
you'll
like role
have
quests in
more
general,
influence
yeah.
over your team's performance.
The only
in
thing
one
I
of
don't
those
like is the premise of the role quest. I don't like the fact that it's hard coding who plays which role. I'm very opposed to that because it stifles creativity. Other than that, I think role quests are fun and they're doing a good job in the game, providing that extra minigame.
roles. If you're a worse player, it will impact your team more if you're put in one of those roles.
Yeah, but to imagine a world where the AD carry in this instance is kind of like a walking turret, for example, you would probably think that that character is like quite powerful, right? Because
It
that
is, but
character
it's not
doesn't have that much
impactful.
macro capability. Could you see a world where that, outweighs being able to play the macro?
All right. I think that it does outweigh, or like it can get to the point, and finding that is like what the hard part is.
Yeah. It's great to see. Yeah. My next topic is LosersQ doesn't exist. You belong at your rank.
True! +1. True. Holy shit. There's nobody gonna give up on this. Is this who's gonna get up on this? It's such a stupid thing. Like you just
Hi.
you just expose yourself being a dumbass
Okay,
if
so
you
my
sit
question
here
to
in the
you is,
chair.
if you were designing a rank system to be as engaging as possible, what would be the parameters for that? If you wanted people to play as much League as possible, ranked specifically,
Trying to lead him down
what
to
do you
the
think would like cultivate that?
I think just fair
to
matches.
the EOMM.
Fast
Okay.
queue times. Yeah.
Yeah, but like at a
Match quality that looks good.
well, the match quality this season
Low
has been
queue time.
a little speculative.
Mhm.
So like consistently fair games, you would say.
Yeah,
Bro,
consistent.
like, I just don't understand the people that think that there's like some grand conspiracy for Riot Games to optimize the fucking gameplay time from people by adding this like extra 1 to 2% by actually hard forcing you to get win streaks and lose streaks based on the tendencies of the players, and then it can predict their behavior and who's going to be trolling and who's going to be not, and put you with trolls so you could lose and continue to lose streaks so you would play more. So they would do all of these extra calculations and all of these predictions and all of this stuff in the background to maximize your engagement when they haven't removed dodging for 15 fucking years. Do you understand how much more extra game time they can add by just removing fucking dodging? They did it at my behest and request for like years of lobbying on that shit, and they did it, and now everybody loves it, and it's impossible to go back in a high elo, but it's still prevalent for 99% of people. It's unreal, man. Why would they be doing all of that hard work? We could just remove dodging and fix it. It would just add way more value to the gameplay time. Like, unbelievable, man.
Consistently fair games.
Yeah, maximize engagement. How about I engage with the lobby in the fucking draft for 35 minutes and then get a game? It's very engaging.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think in terms of the studies that have been done on some other people using like engagement-based matchmaking
In
systems,
other games, I'm pretty sure I've read the study that he's referencing, and it was on the 1v1 games, no? I don't think they did it for
actually,
5v5s.
that's not really what keeps people engaged, it seems. It seems like semi-consistently harder,
Yeah.
and then easier games at kind of like coming out like cheeseburgers, if you will. Like some cheeseburgers are good, and then some like the quality kind of needs to fluctuate like kind of reliably. Like, do you think that would provide?
Yeah, so I think that there are ways that one could change matchmaking to kind of, let's just say, intercept loss streaks, for example.
Sweeten
right?
the mix a little bit.
Totally.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you have different makeups of games that
Yeah, like what people are missing. He's right. You could do this in theory. You could mess around with this. The point is, you don't have to. Provided you have a matchmaking elo-based system that works, you're never supposed to do this. Why would you need to do this? For the edge cases of when people lose 12 games in a row, so they maybe quit the game after 12-game lose streak. That shit is so damn rare anyway if it's perfectly balanced 50% win rate. And let's even say it's not. It's close-ish to the 50% win rate. Still very rare that these like incidences will happen. That you would get like crazy win streak, crazy lose streak, crazy win streak, crazy... Like, these things are super rare. There's no need to manipulate anything when your chance to win is 50% if you're where you belong.
different shapes, for example, or like keeping games interesting, right?
Yep.
And there are definitely ways that we could do that.
Yep.
We don't.
Okay.
But
it really, yeah, it just sometimes I've gone back and forth on this. I'm like a D2 peak kind of player. I don't know. I've heard enough. I've heard enough. D2 kind of player. D2 players are like the firmest believers in the matchmaking shenanigans and manipulation. That's why they stop climbing. That's why they cannot make that final step of getting better, because they offload blame to everything else instead of just looking forward and seeing, like, adding a little bit of self-reflection and figuring out how they can get better. And yeah, the Diamond 2 of old is now the Master Elo, which is now the new home for those delusional people. It's like millions of hands of poker in my life, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm someone who's like very aware of like cosmic variance.
What do you mean? How do you play poker and then like get like? Yeah, there's variance.
And sometimes, man, it feels a little scripted. I think a lot of League players. And
What are you talking about? It's like a scientist talking about the cosmological phenomena and then understanding the probabilities. And then he goes like, but I read this thing in like the paper where it said like, I'm a Capricorn and like, I'm going to have a good day, and I had a good day. And like, now I'm thinking they're right. You know, I'm into astrology now. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You understand the whole idea of how it works. You understand the math behind it. You understand the principle. How can you fall for it all the same? Like, how does that even make sense?
Probably like, we've all hallucinated the same thing at times. Where do you think that comes from?
I think humans in general, not even just players of League of Legends, have a tendency to make theories out of things. Humans are really, really good at pattern recognition.
Yes.
And so they might
That's
see something like,
evolutionary
I lost
byproduct.
5 games in a row, and it was always my top laner.
No, it was the socks you were wearing that day, you dumbass. In fact, the socks you're wearing have more chance of losing it than like the matchmaking for you like that, because like, or like in the long run, because they actually have some way to impact your own gameplay instead of this. Like, you're just getting like random RNG. You're just getting random people, and sometimes win, sometimes you lose. Your pattern recognition can be misfiring because it's so honed in. It's so good. Humans are incredible at pattern recognition. That's why we survived. Like, you're like the final branch of evolution, like that went for thousands of generations, and the only reason they survived is because they had such honed in capabilities of understanding and seeing patterns in nature. Understanding the star patterns, understanding navigation, understanding which seasons are going to happen, when you're supposed to plant, when you're supposed to migrate, when you're supposed to do this, but because it's going to get colder, because it's going to get warmer. These are all patterns that are so necessary for us to survive. And now, like in real life, your day-to-day life, like they're misfiring. You're going to notice patterns where there are none. And that's the wearing the socks, my team winning sort of happenstance.
You know what? I think Riot is making my top laners specifically bad. They're spending extra compute time to give me bad top laners so I lose.
Yep.
And that's something that people can believe, right? Like, so...
Yeah, thanks very much. That was an interesting thought experiment.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, totally.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Oh my God! Savage! My goodness.
Sorry about the run. I'm gonna be honest. I can't really speak a lot on this just because I actually don't play a lot of ranked.
Okay.
But I actually I wanted to speak. Okay. Hey. Stop with the Give me 1 second, please. I wanted to talk about what you were talking about previously.
Yeah.
About with the like the system you have now and it not being a losers queue system.
Yeah.
And kind of maybe that's something that like players hallucinate. And do you see if there's any value in kind of opening up what system you use to show the players like what exactly is going into matchmaking? Because I think part of the problem is that like us as players don't know. And so like you could say whatever you want. You could say, you know, you use losers queue, but if we don't know exactly how it works, then like we could continue to cope, right?
Yeah.
And keep saying
Basically, he's
that
talking about open
this is something
sourcing
that we're
the
experiencing. So
matchmaking
is there any
algorithm.
way to like kind of make that more transparent instead of like a black box system?
Yeah, sure. So I'll tell you what we do. Our primary goal for matchmaking is to make it so that before the game starts, everybody has a 50% chance to win. So, and that kind of basically just means that it's a coin flip, right? Like we couldn't say if my team's going to win or your team's going to win, because if that was true, then we would have unbalanced matchmaking.
And then people on this say like, oh, see, they're pushing you to 50% win rate without understanding that that's the whole purpose of the matchmaking. Like, I know you guys are watching this on like YouTube and like whatever after. Like you guys are like, that can't be real. I've had the same exact discussion like with numerous people on Twitter for years, and people would always come to my stream and say the exact same thing. Verbatim. I'm not kidding. That's how a lot of people believe.
But how do you like ensure that before the match is a 50-50 chance? Like what goes into that is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because obviously like that's the ideal is that you have balanced teams.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of factors like with your MMR and your ELO.
Yeah, so there's a
that
few
go
things
into
we
that.
take into consideration. So like your MMR, we'll take into consideration your
Your main
pre-mains,
role.
we'll take into consideration whether you're autofilled or whether you're secondary. And that's basically it, right? We will, and the role preference, right? So, I mean, that kind of ties into autofill, but those are the only three things we really consider.
That's
and
all.
we make a
That's all you need in such a game, and it makes sense.
fair match. We have a lot of information around what, you know, like if you're playing autofill versus not autofill, how unfair that game is. And so we will, you know, trying to make it so that autofills are match against autofills.
Yeah,
and
the
things like
biggest changes that happened recently were specifically about this, trying to create parity of the secondary roles and autofill between the teams, and trying to they were tuning the knobs there, trying to figure out what queue time is the optimal queue time, and by lowering the queue time, you're increasing the variance within the one game, for example, because you might have like slightly higher versus slightly lower LP players. So those are the things that they're messing around with. It's that they're not messing around in the background with like your brain waves and your brain patterns and whether you're in a mood to troll today and like, oh, I'm gonna put this guy in the winning streak player so I can mess his winning streak, you know?
And yeah, we're pretty accurate overall. So
All right. Well, before I get voted out here real quick, is there any way to actually make that public aside from just stating it? Like having some way for the players to actually be able to see this information? And is there like any issues with that or any way that you could do that? Because I think that would help. Like it's me personally.
yeah, so I think we can say it, right? Players can do statistical analyses if they want. I know there was like a French PhD group that was doing some analyses on whether LosersQ exists and they couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
If you're asking us to open source our code, we're probably not going to do that. But I can tell you what we do, and you can run whatever statistical analysis you want. Like I'm all for that, and you can with the Riot Games APIs. So that is something that people can do, and yeah, I'm very confident that it doesn't exist.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I'll kick myself out now.
Nice to meet you.
Good. Next
My
question.
next topic
What do we got?
is frequent patches are good for the game.
They did lower the amount of patches recently, or like the major changes. Because before it was like a little bit too turbulent, and now they're like, they slowed it down, which is fine as long as there's enough stuff to do like Arena and Era Mayhem so you can keep it fresh. And I don't mind this sort of season, but the one key thing that are missing, or like two, in my opinion, is like you need competitive integrity. You need the ladder to matter. You need the top tiers players to be rewarded so they would want to grind, and not just in one way. One way would be to actually give monetary prizes or give people some sort of recognition for being high rank. And the secondary thing is the high-low players should go to the Spectate Live that goes onto the homepage of Riot Client, and then the Riot Client also you can connect it with your stream wherever you stream, whether you're like streaming on Twitch, YouTube, whatever. You can connect it to your stream so people can watch your POV. So if you appear in the Spectate Live, that is a very, very nice thing for you to happen because you can get some recognition as well. So these are the cool things that you can do to actually make people play the game more, you know, so it's going to feel more impactful and more interesting. The stakes are going to be higher. Nowadays, people are playing for peanuts and the rank doesn't matter for shit and nobody cares about it generally. You hit rank 1 and nobody cares, right? That's something that they need to do.
Hi, I'm James.
Hi.
It's nice to meet you. I think 2-week patches are too frequent for the game. I think coming from a StarCraft background, and also some people talk about TCGs, Super Smash, where you kind of figure out what's strong in the meta and you counter meta, and then that becomes the meta. And I think a good example is always like Worlds patches, where you keep the same patch for a longer period of time. And I don't think infrequent patches are good either. I think there should be a proper cadence. And like OPs or things that are like just too inherently broken. Like
this guy knows his stuff, I can tell.
But I think there is a healthy balance between too frequently and infrequently, where we just need time to figure out how to break the meta or how to follow streamers or pro players and seeing like their unique view on the meta, and then seeing like, oh, we can follow them. And
I agree. Very often people will have like a patch for like 2 weeks and think like they mastered it in 2 weeks and figured out and they know exactly what's meta. But what it ends up being is just everyone copying everyone. Everyone's just being derivative and they keep using the same exact thing. You can have a patch for like 2 months and people still wouldn't like figure out the cool things a lot of the time. So
breaking
there's a lot of things you can play around, you know.
When I think of that, I'm thinking that one of the things that you value is players being able to figure something out versus change happening overall. Because, you know, we could argue that changing the game frequently results in more change than waiting for pros to figure it out. Like, do you agree with that?
yes, I agree with that. Yeah.
Because there are many factors, for example.
Yeah, because everybody reads patch notes and there's like a lot of placebo and nocebo effects there, and like you manipulate people's perspectives basically by like buffing the Caitlyn, nerfing the Caitlyn. People are like, oh, Caitlyn got buffed, I should play more Caitlyn, you know? And those things happen. Or like they've done like accidental fakes where champions win rate was actually decreased or increased based on a fake update.
That result in pro players being unable to figure something out. You know, things like scrims, you know, you can waste everyone's time by saying, I'm going to play, I don't know, like Xerath bot or something, or Kayle mid, and then, you know, the team is trying to play around and they're like, we don't know how to make this work, right? And then so they might just end up defaulting to something safe. And so one of the things that we kind of have to toss up, and this is a conversation that we have a lot, is how much change is too much change, right? Like, on one hand, we want the game to change a lot because that helps the game feel fresh and it helps, you know, people who play a lot feel like the game is changing. At the same time, how much can we rely on pro players or the player base at large to be able to change what is good in the game? And in many ways, our job is to make it so it's kind of petri dish or almost an ecosystem of things that are viable at any given time. And
yeah, every patch should have its kind of like life cycle, and they just have to like keep a finger on the pulse of the community and figure out when it's time to change something, when it's getting stale.
You know, say, for example, Alois playing Mundo. Like, we didn't change Mundo for ages. He just, you know, took that and was like, I'm going to make a brand out of playing Mundo. And as long as we make that true, there's a balance between doing that, leaving things in a state for them to be discovered.
Yeah, also just I made up a good video on Mundo, basically explaining the phenomena. That phenomena was very, very interesting, and a lot of people just didn't care about Mundo, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, he's the best champion in the game. Oh, it's like, win rate-wise, it's like, worst champion in the game, you know? Pretty funny.
Simply changing things ourselves if we feel like there's not enough change in the game. So I do think it's a balance, and I do think your point is pretty valid.
Yeah.
That tells you how late community can be.
I also feel like the Mundo thing, where he kind of just ran with it, but I think that's like a positive point to what I'm trying to say, where there are things that are hidden, and I assume that you guys know what is kind of hidden underneath the hood, and not changing those things. Is that true, or is that kind of?
Yeah, I mean, to an extent.
I mean, I don't think they know. I don't think they know, because it's like asking the central planning to know everything, where it's just better to let people kind of like slowly come up with ideas. And the Mundo thing, it wasn't the fact that Mundo was broken but nobody understood. It's like everyone knew Mundo wasn't that strong, but then Alois and Natty and Juggle, they basically psyoped the league community into thinking Mundo is broken, and they all panicked because of it. But Mundo wasn't broken at all. It's just their perception of the character, you know?
Like, there are certainly, it's a balance between having things settled enough that people can discover stuff organically. And also when we notice that's not happening, to also change things forcibly on our end. So it's a balancing act.
Okay. And how do you guys kind of balance that against like the Worlds patch where you have like 3 or 4 metas develop within like a month's time?
Yeah.
Just because people are figuring things out and kind of like regions are clashing.
Yeah.
And so like, is there any plans to like kind of do more of
I
that?
love Worlds patches.
Like during
So
MSI,
fun.
like MSI is a shorter thing, but I think it could be a good thought experiment to like run like a longer patch during that time.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting thought experiment. A lot of what we think about when going into these major tournaments is just how deep does the meta go? We know that there are kind of things that are going to be strong. There are things that are going to be, you know, first order counters to that or second order counters to that. And also, honestly, the regions do a lot of the job for us where they just bring different metas into the tournament and we get to see how that plays out. And I do think that that's exciting and we don't really need to mess with that a lot. And so, yeah, that's generally our stance. Great points.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bro, like, how can people run to the chair? And, like, this guy's running from all the way left side. This guy's, like, he takes a casual stroll to the chair. Like, what is he supposed to, like, push Frogs on and, like, sit here instead of him? Like, what is this system? It's so bad. Like, you getting RNG seat here is, like, okay, you're just spectating now.
Hey, I'll follow Matt. Nice to meet you. Thanks for
Thank
the work
you.
on the game.
Yeah.
So my opinion on this is as the game has changed and evolved, I think that frequent patches, while good, sometimes that can be played around with just because League has kind of shifted from where it was 5-10 years ago with the seasons now being kind of split into 3 different parts. Preseason, I played in the Black Cleaver Pantheon preseason with stacking
Blue
it, right?
side versus red side.
That was fun, but I think that a lot of those windows of experimenting with how you guys have designed the game have kind of been now built into the schedule. And so I'm thinking of changing the patch frequency around maybe fitting that schedule for both esports and also the player calendar, just for the general player base. And I'm kind of curious, like, from your perspective, if you were to go from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, or even just not be consistent and kind of shift the windows, like data-wise, how would that change for you? Because I'm kind of curious, like, there could be proponents of how that could like be positive for the player base, thinking of keeping them on the Worlds patch for the duration of the tournament. It's always something I've been a big proponent of.
Yeah, sure. I definitely think that there are pros and cons to any approach that we take. One of the things that's really important is that, players feel like there are periods of change. Players also feel like there are periods of stability, right? And so that kind of informs how much we change each patch, right? Like, if players feel like the game is good, there's kind of not much reason to change it. On the flip side, if players feel like the game is bad, then we should be changing a lot of stuff, right? And so typically what we'll see is that, especially in the beginning of the year, like the early patches that we had this year, we were changing a lot of stuff, right? Because there was a lot of stuff that was like pretty messed up. There was a lot of stuff that was also just like pretty useless, right? And so we want to make it so that players who love these champions and have played them for years don't feel like they're just griefing the game by playing something, for example. And so we definitely like modulate based on what we feel the community needs.
Yeah, I think a lot of the modulating does take place within like that set 2-week window where it's like, hey, every 2 weeks we're gonna make change. We might have a lot of changes for this or not as much, just depending on what the calendar's like.
Yeah.
How would like then shifting up a window where, again, opening up for the duration of Worlds, like I think a lot of the changes that have been made, this is very esports lens for game design,
totally.
but it is kind of keeping the game similar for people playing it at home with how they've shifted where esports lies. So part of that would be live patches. I think even Fearless Draft a little bit encourages more champions just being in the game. So
Fearless
like
really
if there
good.
were to be a 6-week Worlds patch window, because I think this is kind of looking at League as a marketing arm, but also like just kind of the impacts. I'm curious if the impacts that it would have on you, or also just the proponents of like, hey, maybe that is a lever we could pull to make sure that the game that these guys are watching for the biggest event is the same game they're playing at home.
Yeah, there is definitely that consideration, and it's one that we've thought about a lot. Like, how do we value players, like pro players, practicing on the Worlds patch, and the value of keeping that stable versus, let's just say, I don't know, nerfing a champion that doesn't get seen in pro play that's like terrorizing, regular play, for example. Those are the considerations that we have, and we ultimately like just have to trade off in some situations. So yeah, League is played by many different people, and certainly many millions of people who are not interested in pro play whatsoever, but come home and get frustrated by Garen hiding in a bush and one-shotting them, right? So we need to think about those audiences as well and just try and balance all their needs together. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's almost an
Thanks.
impossible balancing act of trying to deal with all the low elo, mid elo, high elo, and then the worlds, and then the pro leagues. It's just kind of impossible thing to do, which means there will always be things that are better than and worse. As long as they can go through them and cycle them, that would make it feel fun and good. Now, the one thing that I don't like with Riot is that they have these champs that they keep always relevant, you know, like something like Akali and Sylas, and these champs will forever be relevant. Bard, for example, forever going to be relevant. Bard I can understand because low pick rate, and they don't want to change him because nobody plays him really because he's too obscure, even though he's like ridiculously strong. But you have champion like Akali and Sylas who are just always pro staple and good in solo queue, and they're there always, you know. Like, we should cycle it. We should aim for one season to be more like Artillery Mage Hone and see how people feel like. And then, not even one season. It can be one split, for example. You can try to kind of shift it around a little bit more in that regard, I'd say. It can get a little bit stale when you're always looking at the exact same champions and same matchups, right? So, yeah.
My take is Riot does a good job of releasing new champions.
Holy, the Barack Obama giving himself a medal?
I'm probably back up here because I was thinking while I was sitting down, there's one way to clear up the LosersQ thing forever. You can just swear on your mom that it's not real.
What is it?
And then you can just shake my hand, swear on your mom that it's not real, and I'll just believe you forever. I mean,
okay.
Anyways, for the conspiracy theorists out there.
Not
Anyway, the new champions thing. I was actually looking at the list of new champions the other day. And
what's going on, man?
Wow, these champions have all been...
There's always one wacko in there.
I think it was Set. I think it was Set. How do you think the new champions have been going? Have they been successful?
So when I think of the new champions, there's definitely different design philosophies we had for each of them, right? Some of them were designed to be simple champions.
I think they're doing a good job with the latest releases. Yunara was phenomenal. I love that.
Yep. Some were designed to be, you know, a little more
cool stuff,
difficult to play against in some situations, and succeeded at doing that.
The reworks also
kind of like what I was saying
generally
before,
good. Not sure about Shyvana.
Value in having our champion releases sometimes draw a lot of, you know, difficult complaints about how to play against them, and people learn how to play against them and experience all of those up and downs that come with the champion release.
Okay. How would you define a champion's release being a success?
So I think that a champion being popular or having an audience, you know, is one defining factor. A champion having healthy gameplay, so it has good counterplay in some situations, and that doesn't need to mean it has counterplay in every situation, right? Like sometimes if a Rengar is 12-0, he's just going to one-shot you, right? And that's just the game. But also that the champion has a resonant fantasy, and it has a player base that really loves the champion, and they can do things that are really awesome that no other champion can do. I think those are really
the key, straight up.
A lot about when releasing a successful champion.
Yeah, there's been a few lackluster ones for me. I'm not sure if you guys are hitting the mark there.
Yeah.
But I think it's really hard with 169 champions to
Which
design
one?
something unique.
Give it
So I think you guys have a really hard job cut out for you.
Yeah. So every champion's not meant for every player as well. Is the other thing.
That makes sense.
And so it's like, even if you don't like it, maybe someone else does.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Diamond 2 opinion rejected. Oh, he came up from LosersQ. He went from behind the chair. He jumped over Froxon. He got in there.
I was actually paying attention to your conversation earlier where you mentioned how your guys' main objectives when you release a new champion are mainly the popularity and
he's got that 999.
And I believe those
but like
are
when he looks down, he sees 666, you know?
To a degree inherently contradictory. Because if a champion is unhealthy, that's sort of what incentivizes a high play rate. For example, Cassante was like, I don't remember the exact number, but I'm pretty sure the pick/ban rate was probably absurdly high on release. And that's because the champion was so unhealthy. And I do feel like when we look at the roster of champions, especially recent ones, there have been a few misses. So for example, Briar, again, I don't have these numbers off the top of my head, but I assume her pick rate is pretty low comparative. And I feel like her niche or her role isn't really that defined. I feel like she's relatively weak.
Everyone knows Briar was released to have the Gooner bait with the whole feet image. Everybody knows, guys.
Other champions, for example, I think the ones that will probably get mentioned or thought of the most are Cassante and Aphelios on release. Those champions were in my opinion, pretty unbalanced. Every time Affiliates press ult, I would get a buzz cut. And then there's other champions that are functionally Labubus. So I feel like for that reason, if we're playing semantics, I feel like...
Sorry, what does a champion being a Labubu mean?
Well, kind of useless. That cosmetic. Like largely cosmetic, right?
Agree with Labubu.
So for that reason, I feel like if we're playing semantics, I feel like Riot is at best mediocre on releasing new champions because of the argument you mentioned inherently. And then we look at some of the evidence releases.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting take. I definitely think that we've had some hits and some misses, but one of the things that's pretty important is that when I say popular, I mean every champion has people that love them, you know? And that can mean, in some cases, a lot of people, if it's a really broad theme. We know that some themes are going to be more or less resonant than others, right?
I mean, these things will always, to some degree, end up being subjective, because you have champions who are unpopular, kind of like VelKoz, but they're phenomenally designed. It's one of the best characters in the game ever designed, right? It's got its own core fantasy, and it's just beautiful. You play the champ, you feel like the champ, everything just clicks and it fits, you know? And then you have champs with, like, low play rates, but they're like, absolute dog shit, and nobody plays them. Like, even the people that play them a little bit don't really like them, you know? So it's very hard to discern these things. They will always just be very, very subjective. It just depends what you want to maximize. And yeah, champions like Neferi should be removed.
Like if you have a you know, a Yunara type character, she's going to be pretty popular kind of regardless of her power level, just because she's got a really appealing aesthetic, she's got very smooth gameplay and these types of things.
Yunara is a great release.
Champions that might be,
I think as objectively as you can state that Yunara is a great release. Very fun to play, smooth, fluid fantasy, you know, it's kind of fun, appealing, got good pick rate. It's just cool.
More aesthetically polarizing might be, you know, a little less popular, but that's okay as long as they have people that love them, you know what I mean? And so in a sense, it's important that the champion is there for somebody. And the other thing that I kind of want to unpack a bit is when you talk about a champion being popular is typically tied to them being unhealthy. I don't know if I quite agree with that take. Like, would you say that, for example, a Jhin or an Ezreal.
Zillion is unhealthy, but unpopular.
I think over time that plays out differently, but specifically on release, the play rate is dependent on how strong it is. For example, if the champion is some bullshit, no one's picking it.
Sure. Yeah, it definitely increases the popularity. I will say that. But also, sometimes when we release champions, they're kind of underpowered, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes we release them and they're a little too strong, you know?
Yeah.
But I do think that in general, champions on release tend to be pretty popular, you know, kind of regardless of their power level or whether they're
yeah, it's like a tryout.
But I would say that, yeah, certainly like in situations where they do have a mechanic that's very, you know, considered quite polarizing, they're of course going to attract a lot of people that are interested in playing it. Yeah.
But for that reason, then, would you feel like the champions are popular because of their identity, or is the fact that it's just a new champion? Because I feel like if they're popular just by merit of being a new champion, is that really considered a success on the behalf of Riot?
Yeah, so we think of long-term popularity, right? Like, did they hold an audience in the long term? Did that audience really love them and stick with that champion and have them become their main?
Would you say you're satisfied with the success rate of most of the recent champions?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah. I can't think of any off the top of my head that don't have an audience or don't have you know, situations where they have a lot of healthy gameplay. And so, you know, sometimes it's taken us a while to get them into that state. But
yeah, I think overall they do a good job with
the champions that we've released recently. Yeah, I can't think of any that don't.
There are misses, obviously,
but don't have an audience. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, man. And now we're going to let one of the Redditors pick a topic to debate.
Already nervous, palms are sweaty.
So, G.
Hi.
Palms are also sweaty.
Yeah, there we go. Hi, I'm Rez, and I believe that the bounty system, and specifically the objective bounties, are a bit unbalanced. I'll zero in on objective bounties. I think they're currently unbalanced.
I would have to disagree in the current iteration, because there were moments where it was a little bit unbalanced. I think now they're very, very accurate. It's very, very accurate how it balances things out. On the flip side, it is impossible to balance these things out. It's absolutely impossible. You have a Lux that goes 10-0. Okay, she's worth 1,000. Lux cannot really just become a lobby admin and run away with the game. So therefore, she should be in theory worth less than somebody else who has more impact at that state. For example, you have Kayn, who's 10-0. Should it be same worth exactly as Lux? Those two aren't one-to-one, because a Fed Kayn will just breeze through the Fed Lux and everybody else on the entire server. He's just gonna break everything because he's gonna run through the entire lobby, right? Because he has no counterplay when he's Fed. Same for Rengar, right? You can't really match these characters. For the system to be perfectly balanced, you should know exactly how much impact a specific character can exert and how much difficulty it took to get to that place of getting Fed in the first place, and then kind of match that into the number, which is just practically impossible for us. So we just go based on like, okay, what are the tendencies? Have you died twice, 3 times? Okay, now you're worth 150. Those bounties are kind of impossible. They're unfeasible to be pulled off. So they will inherently always be somewhat unbalanced, but within the system that you're operating it, I think the bounty system is fairly balanced. I don't think you can do much better than this. So
balanced and really frustrating to play against, because at least for me, at least with the current bounty system, when you're going for a champion, that is easier to deal with. But now you're incentivized as the winning team to try and stop action from happening. Let's say if you want to make a play towards the bot side of the map, and let's say someone like a Tryndamere is split pushing top, especially in this meta where turret plates are available, you're like, damn, now he's gonna get turret plates and objective bounties topside. Like that can really spiral topside. So instead of like creating action, I'm trying to slow the game down and deny that from happening. So now it's this free gold that's being given.
This is like, I think this is the fault of perception. That move is an action in of itself. It's just a little bit of like a hidden action. The line of reasoning that he's employing here is basically just going towards nothing but a brawler. It just loses all the tactics out of it, because the game is instructing you to play correctly via bounty system, via rust on the turret. It's instructing you to not let enemies reach your base when you're fucking ahead, because that should not be happening. If you allow it, you are getting punished, and good, because you fail to control the map when you're ahead. And it's a valuable learning tool for people. The game, by its own design, is teaching people how to play the gold, how to play the game, how to play the map. So the game is instructing you to play itself. And that is a good design. When the game like slowly nudges you towards correct plays. Like everything in the world operates on incentives, and you need to, if you want to create a good system, you need to create good incentives in the first place, because then you can reward good behavior. That's how it should be.
There's bounties, and it feels like that's something that's just slowing the game down and detracting us from wanting to speed the game in general. And then another problem
see, like he's assuming that speed is better, but if you run that like to its extreme, it just becomes nothingness. It becomes devoid of context and meaning and of just fighting. You know, just play ARAM at that point. Like I don't know,
or just bounties in general. Is that if you're on quote unquote the losing side, you are now kind of immune from bounties as a team. Like let's say you have a top laner, gonna still use the Tryndamere example, very fed, but his team is really losing.
Yeah.
Well, suddenly he doesn't have a bounty on his name, but he can collect bounties from the opposing team because theoretically they're far ahead. And I think that is frustrating to deal with, especially if it's, let's say, a Kale,
it can be frustrating,
like a scaling element.
And that's one of those like edge cases where like, sure, you could maybe do like more machine learning, better analysis of exact impact and the worth of character to kind of modify the bounty to correct number value in that given moment, but it's just too much work for too little gain, and they're pretty decent at the moment.
But on a losing team, but you're playing like Pantheon, maybe something that's like a Samira that isn't scaling, but you're far ahead, and you're like, wait a minute, game state actually makes it so they're in a pretty good position, but we're the ones with the bounties.
See, again, it's like the perception problem, because you're thinking this like after the fact. You're supposed to be figuring this out during the game, and the deliberate choice of you trying to get yourself ahead via kills and gold lead instead of converting that into objectives is your fault. Because if you're not drawing the Tryndamere to teamfights, if you're not collecting the Dragon number 4 at that point when you dominated the map for 20 minutes, then that's on you, right? It's another way of the game instructing you how to learn the game and how to play it correctly. Because that is a deliberate decision you actually made, but you don't know that you made a decision because you just think, oh, I'm fed, I'm ahead, I'm winning. That's not true, because the game is not over. You gotta map out what leads you want to pursue. You can't just bang your head in the wall and try to like break open the base. It's going to work 70% of the time, but those 30% you're going to lose. And the takeaway there is not that the system is bad because they won. It's like, I failed to maximize the advantage in the correct way. So they draw enemies out. Like, what is Tryndamere going to do in a team fight? Doesn't matter if he's 10-0, if he's in a team fight and you guys are ahead. You're going to wipe the floor with him and everybody else, right? So you just pull them towards you, control the map. pull them to river, threaten with something. That's why the game is so brilliantly designed, because you have threatening tools. You have dragons, you have the herald, you have the grubs, and now you have the baron as well. Like, all these things are very, very important. Now, obviously you can mess up and lose, but it's a learning experience.
So I think I would like it for champion bounties to be spread apart for both the winning team and the losing team, so you can collect bounties no matter what. But objective bounties, I just generally don't.
Like, I'd like to ask him now, like, conversely, like, what if you're the Tryndamere and the enemies get 500 gold from killing you when your entire team is eating glue in the background? You have no access to the map, you have no access to the objectives, you're getting suffocated, and you try to make a play, and now we can use his argument against him. Doesn't that stifle your playmaking of trying to make a comeback? How are you going to play make as the only fed person on the team if you're worth more money than a lot of people in the entire game? Okay, how are you going to play the game? It makes no system. That was the old system, and that's why it had problems.
Do you think that there should be comeback mechanics in general in League?
Yes. I mean, I love the dopamine of being able to come back.
I like the
making the correct plays
deconstruction
in general to come back. So I do agree some.
How do you think teams that are behind should be able to come back?
I think being able to come
He's
back
gonna
based
lose
off
himself,
champion bounties is correct. Like, if there is a really fed champion in the enemy team, being able to band together as a squad to be able to, like, focus them down, I think that is very rewarding, and I liked it since the beginning of the game.
Yeah, so what is the difference between players when they're behind banding
He's gonna
together to
cook
take
him.
somebody down, as opposed
He's
to
gonna
banding
cook him,
together
Chad.
to take an objective or take a tower when they're behind?
I think there should be an innate difficulty in being able to take down a bounty. If you're a smart team and you recognize that you like the stronger team going for a dragon, it is not difficult.
They're probably not a smart
for,
team.
let's say, for us to trade and to send our top laner and a jungler to take topside bounty for the plates, and I mean for the turret itself. So I think there's zero difficulty in being able to trade sides of the map, whereas the team that is ahead suddenly has to second think every choice that they are making in terms of progressing the game.
Yeah, so I agree that
Like
bounties
giving
have-
up dragons and not scaling to late game because they have early game champs and picked up a lot of money early, and they didn't convert into lead of objectives, right? And then you're getting mad about enemy Tryndamere scaling and getting fed. Like, you're on a timer, finish the mission, do it correctly, okay? That's it's wonderfully designed.
some behavior where when you're ahead, the optimal play is sometimes to protect your bounty, right? And so one of the main mechanisms we have against that is things like ambient gold or just gold acquisition in general, because it means that a player who gets very ahead is kind of like losing if they do anything. And so we try and bake that risk into the game naturally so that the behind team has an opportunity to take bounties, but the ahead team also needs to do something with their lead, because otherwise the behind team is just going to catch up, right?
Yeah.
Like the gold lead is going to close. At the same time, when we think about bounties, we also want the defensive team, the defending team, to be able to take aggressive action, right? And so if a team is ahead, normally what happens is they'll death ball and they'll control all the vision, and there's just like innately no way for the losing team to come back.
Yeah.
So we want to find a way for the losing team to be able to put themselves at risk, like send a Tryndamere into the side lane, but also that has to have some reward to it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of why we have that structure. Now, I could believe that, when a team is behind and they're trying to take
Yeah,
the bounty,
that specific Tryndamere doesn't need any extra risk. The risk for himself is basically him dying, the only player that's playing the game dying. That's as much risk as you can muster. And then, like, adding extra bounty on him is an insult. It's an insult to the game. It's just unplayable.
sometimes that's too easy. But that's also kind of by design, right? Like, we can't have a comeback system or a bounty system where it's just like not possible to come back, right?
Yeah.
So I could believe that we have tuned it in a way that it is too easy to trade. But at the same time, we do think that structurally the risk and reward profile of it is in a decent spot. So maybe we need to do some changes to like the actual rewards or the actual difficulty of claiming the bounties when you're behind and things like that. Yeah, I think it's a great point though.
All right, thanks a lot. That makes sense for me.
Yeah, like a one minor point there. And
the role power
but it's just
question
too
was
difficult to
my
work.
favorite topic to debate because there's no right answer. And everybody can have a different valid opinion. Thank you everyone for coming. It was really awesome debating with all of you.
That was a fun video. That was a fun video. I wish I would do more of this.